Chapter 8 of The Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The First Trial by Fire. On the following day, while Owen sat eating his morning meal with a thankful heart, a messenger arrived, saying that the king would receive him whenever it pleased him to come. He answered that he would be with him before noon, for already he had learned that among natives one loses little by delay. A great man, they think, is rich in time, and hurries only to wait upon his superiors. At the appointed hour a guard came to lead him to the royal house, and thither Owen went, followed by John bearing a Bible. Umsuka was seated beneath a reed roof, supported by poles and open on all sides. Behind him stood councillors and attendants, and by him were Nodwengo the prince and Hosa his mouth and prophet. Although the day was hot, he wore a kaross, or rug of wild cat skins, and his face showed that the effects of the poisoned draught were still upon him. At the approach of Owen he rose with something of an effort, and shaking him by the hand, thanked him for his life, calling him "Doctor of doctors." "Tell me, messenger," he added, "how it was that you were able to cure me, and who were in the plot to kill me. There must have been more than one." And he rolled his eyes round with angry suspicion. "King," answered Owen, "if I knew anything of this matter, the power that wrote it on my mind has wiped it out again, or at the least has forbidden me to speak of its secret. I saved you; it is enough. For the rest, the past is the past, and I come to deal with the present and the future." "This white man keeps his word," thought Hosa to himself, and he looked at him, thanking him with his eyes. "So be it," answered the king. "After all, it is wise not to stir a dung heap, for there we find little besides evil odours and the nests of snakes. Now, what is your business with me, and why do you come from the white man's countries to visit me? I have heard of those countries; they are great and far away. I have heard of the white men also, wonderful men who have all knowledge. But I do not desire to have anything to do with them, for whenever they meet black people, they eat them up, taking their lands and making them slaves. Once, some years ago, 2 of you white people visited us here, but perhaps you know that story." "I know it," answered Owen. "One of those men you murdered, and the other you sent back with a message which he delivered into my ears across the waters, thousands of miles away." "Nay," answered the king, "we did not murder him. He came to us with the story of a new god who could raise the dead and work other miracles, and gave such powers to his servants. So a man was slain, and we begged of him to bring him back to life, and since he could not, we killed him also, because he was a liar." "He was no liar," said Owen, "since he never told you that he had power to open the mouth of the grave. Still, Heaven is merciful, and although you murdered him that was sent to you, his master has chosen me to follow in his footsteps. Me also you may murder if you will, and then another and another, but still the messengers shall come, till at last your eyes are opened and you listen. Only for such deeds your punishment must be heavy." "What is the message, white man?" "A message of peace, of forgiveness, and of life beyond the grave, of life everlasting. Listen, king. Yesterday you were near to death. Say now, had you stepped over the edge of it, where would you be this day?" Umsuka shrugged his shoulders. "With my fathers, white man." "And where are your fathers?" "Nay, I know not. Nowhere, everywhere. The night is full of them. In the night we hear the echo of their voices. When they are angry, they haunt the thunder cloud, and when they are pleased, they smile in the sunshine. Sometimes also they appear in the shape of snakes, or visit us in dreams, and then we offer them sacrifice. Yonder on the hillside is a haunted wood. It is full of their spirits, white man, but they cannot talk, they only mutter, and their footfalls sound like the dropping of heavy rain, for they are strengthless and unhappy, and in the end they fade away." "So you say," answered Owen, who were not altogether without understanding, yet know little, never having been taught. "Now listen to me. and very earnestly he preached to him and to those about him of peace, of forgiveness, and of life everlasting.
"Why should a god die miserably upon a cross?" asked the king at length.
"That through his sacrifice men might become as gods," answered Owen. "Believe in him, and he will save you."
"How can we do that?" asked the king again, "when already we have a god? Can we desert one god and set up another?"
"What god, king?"
"I will show him to you, White Man. Let my litter be brought."
The litter was brought, and the king entered it with labouring breath. Passing through the north gate of the great place, the party ascended a slope of the hill that lay beyond it, till they reached a flat plain some hundreds of yards in width. On this plain vegetation grew scantily, for here the bedrock of ironstone, denuded with frequent and heavy rains, was scarcely hidden by a thin crust of earth. On the further side of the plain, however, and separated from it by a little stream, was a green bank of deep soft soil, beyond which lay a gloomy valley full of great trees, that for many generations had been the burying place of the kings of the Amasuka.
"This is the house of the god," said the king.
"A strange house," answered Owen, "and where is he that dwells in it?"
"Follow me, and I will show you, Messenger. But be swift, for already the sky grows dark with coming tempest."
Now at the king's command the bearers bore him across the sere plateau towards a stone that lay almost in its centre. Presently they halted, and pointing to this mass, the king said: "Behold the god." Owen advanced and examined the object. A glance told him that this god of the Amasuka was a meteoric stone of unusual size. Most of such stones are mere shapeless lumps, but this one bore a peculiar resemblance to a seated human being holding up one arm towards the sky. So strange was this likeness that, other reasons apart, it seemed not wonderful that savages should regard the thing with awe and veneration. Rather would it have been wonderful had they not done so. "Say now," said Owen to the king when he had inspected the stone, "what is the history of this dumb god of yours, and why do you worship him?"
"Follow me across the stream, and I will tell you, Messenger," answered the king, again glancing at the sky. "The storm gathers, and when it breaks, none are safe upon this plain except the heaven doctors, such as Hosa and his companions, who can bind the lightning."
So they went, and when they reached the further side of the stream, Umsuka descended from his litter.
"Messenger," he said, "this is the story of the god as it has come down to us. From the beginning our land has been scourged with lightning above all other lands, and with the floods of rain that accompany the lightning. In the old days the great place of the king was out yonder among the mountains, but every year fire from heaven fell upon it, destroying much people, and at length in a great tempest the house of the king of that day was smitten and burned, and his wives and children were turned to ashes. Then that king held a council of his wizards and fire doctors, and these, having consulted the spirits of their forefathers, retired into a place apart to fast and pray. Yes, it was in yonder valley, the burying ground of kings, that they hid themselves. Now on the third night the god of fire appeared to the chief of the doctors in his sleep, and he was shaped like a burning brand, and smoke went up from him. Out of the smoke he spoke to the doctor, saying, 'For this reason it is that I torment your people, that they hate me and curse at me and pay me little honour.' In his dream the doctor answered, 'How can the people honour a god they do not see?' Then the god said, 'Rise up now in the night, all the company of you, and go take your stand upon the banks of yonder stream, and I will fall down in fire from heaven, and there on the plain you shall find my image. Then let your king move his great place into the valley beneath the plain, and henceforth my bolts shall spare it and him. Only, month by month, you shall make prayers and offerings to me. Moreover, the name of the people shall be changed, for it shall be called the People of Fire.' Now the doctor rose, and having awakened his companions, he told them of his vision. Then they all of them went down to the banks of this stream where we now stand. And as they waited, there was a great tempest burst over them, and in the midst of that tempest they saw the flaming figure of a man descend from heaven, and when he touched the earth it shook. The morning came, and there upon the plain before them, where there had been nothing, sat the likeness of the god as it sits today, and shall sit for ever. So the name of this people was changed, and the king's great place was built where it now is. Since that day, messenger, no hut has been burned, and no man killed in or about the great place by fire from heaven, which falls only here where the god is, though away among the mountains and elsewhere men are sometimes killed. But wait a while, and you shall see with your eyes. Hokosa, do you, whom the lightning will not touch, take that pole of dead wood, and set it up yonder in the crevice of the rock, not far from the figure of the god." "I obey," said Hokosa, "although I have brought no medicines with me. Perhaps," he added with a faint sneer, "the white man, who is so great a wizard, will not be afraid to accompany me." Now Owen saw that all those present were looking at him curiously. It was evident they believed that he would not dare to accept the challenge. Therefore he answered at once and without hesitation: "Certainly I will come. The pole is heavy for one man to carry, and where Hokosa goes, there I can go also." "Nay, nay, messenger," said the king. "The lightning knows Hokosa and will turn from him, but you are a stranger to it, and it will eat you up." "King," answered Owen, "I do not believe that Hokosa has any power over the lightning. It may strike him or it may strike me, but unless my God so commands, it will strike neither of us." "On your head be it, white man," said Hokosa with cold anger. "Come, aid me with the pole." Then they lifted the dead tree, and between them carried it into the middle of the plain, where they set it up in a crevice of the rock. By this time the storm was almost over them, and watching it, Owen perceived that the lightnings struck always along the bank of the stream, doubtless following a hidden line of the bed of ironstone. "It is but a very little storm," said Hokosa contemptuously, "such as visit us almost every afternoon at this period of the year. Ah, white man, I would that you could see one of our great tempests, for these are worth beholding. This I fear, however, that you will never do, seeing it is likely that within some few minutes you will have passed back to that king who sent you here, with a hole in your head and a black mark down your spine." "That we shall learn presently, Hokosa," answered Owen. "For my part, I pray that no such fate may overtake you." Now Hokosa moved himself away, muttering and pointing with his fingers, but Owen remained standing within about 30 yards of the pole. Suddenly there came a glare of light, and the pole was split into fragments, but although the shock was perceptible, they remained unhurt. Almost immediately a second flash leaped from the cloud, and Owen saw Hokosa stagger and fall to his knees. "The man is struck," he thought to himself, but it was not so, for recovering his balance the wizard walked back to the stream. Owen never stirred. From boyhood courage had been one of his good qualities, but it was a courage of the spirit rather than of the flesh. For instance, at this very moment, so far as his body was concerned, he was much afraid, and did not in the least enjoy standing upon an ironstone plateau at the imminent risk of being destroyed by lightning. But even if he had not had an end to gain, he would have scorned to give way to his human frailties. Also, now as always, his faith supported him. As it happened, the storm, which was slight, passed by, and no more flashes fell. When it was over, he walked back to where the king and his court were standing. "Messenger," said Umsuka, "you are not only a great doctor, you are also a brave man, and such I honour. There is no one among us here, not being a lord of the lightning, who would have dared to stand upon that place with Hokosa while the flashes fell about him. Yet you have done it. It was Hokosa who was driven away. You have passed the trial by fire, and henceforth, whether we refuse your message or accept it, you are great in this land." "There is no need to praise me, King," answered Owen. "The risk is something, but I knew that I was protected from it, seeing that I shall not die until my hour comes, and it is not yet. Listen now. Your god yonder is nothing but a stone, such as I have often seen before. For sometimes in great tempests
They come to earth from the clouds. You are not the first people that have worshipped such a stone, but now we know better. Also, this plain before you is full of iron, and iron draws the lightning. That is why it never strikes your town below. The iron attracts it more strongly than earth and huts of straw. Again, while the pole stood, I was in little danger, for the lightning strikes the highest thing. But after the pole was shattered, and Hosa wisely went away, then I was in some danger, only no flashes fell. I am not a magician, King, but I know some things that you do not know, and I trust in one whom I shall lead you to trust also."
"We will talk more of this hereafter," said the king hurriedly, "for one day I have heard and seen enough. Also, I do not believe your words, for I have noted ever that those who are the greatest wizards of all say continually that they have no magic power. Hosa, you have been famous in your day, but it seems that henceforth you who have led must follow." "The battle is not yet fought, King," answered Hokosa. "Today I met the lightnings without my medicines, and it was a little storm. When I am prepared with my medicines, and the tempest is great, then I will challenge this white man to face me yonder. And then in that hour my God shall show his strength, and his God shall not be able to save him."
"That we shall see when the time comes," answered Owen with a smile. That night, as Owen sat in his hut working at the translation of St. John, the door was opened and Hokosa entered.
"White man," said the wizard, "you are too strong for me, though whence you have your power I know not. Let us make a bargain. Show me your magic, and I will show you mine, and we will rule the land between us. You and I are much akin. We are great. We have the spirit sight. We know that there are things beyond the things we see and hear and feel, whereas for the rest they are fools, following the flesh alone. I have spoken."
"Very gladly will I show you my magic, Hokosa," answered Owen cheerfully, "since, to speak the truth, though I know you to be wicked, and guess that you would be glad to be rid of me by fair means or foul, yet I have taken a liking for you, seeing in you one who from a sinner may grow into a saint. This then is my magic: to love God and serve man, to eschew wizardry, wealth and power, to seek after holiness, poverty and humility, to deny your flesh and to make yourself small in the sight of men, that so perchance you may grow great in the sight of heaven and save your soul alive."
"I have no stomach for that lesson," said Hokosa.
"Yet you shall live to hunger for it," answered Owen, and the wizard went away, angered but wondering. End of chapter 8. Of the Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Crisis. Now day by day for something over a month, Owen preached the gospel before the king, his councillors, and hundreds of the headmen of the nation. They listened to him attentively, debating the new doctrine point by point, for although they might be savages, these people were very keen-witted and subtle. Very patiently did Owen sow, and at length, to his infinite joy, he also gathered in his first fruit. One night as he sat in his hut labouring as usual at the work of translation, wherein he was assisted by John, whom he had taught to read and write, the Prince Nodwengo entered and greeted him. For a while he sat silent watching the white man at his task. Then he said, "Messenger, I have a boon to ask of you. Can you teach me to understand those signs which you set upon the paper, and to make them also as does John your servant?" "Certainly," answered Owen. "If you will come to me at noon tomorrow, we will begin." The prince thanked him, but he did not go away. Indeed, from his manner, Owen guessed that he had something more upon his mind. At length it came out. "Messenger," he said, "you have told us of baptism, whereby we are admitted into the army of your king. Say, have you the power of this rite?" "I have." "And is your servant here baptized?" "He is." "And if he who is a common man can be baptized, why may not I, who am a prince?" "In baptism," answered Owen, "there is no distinction between the highest and the lowest. But if you believe, then the door is open, and through it you can join the company of heaven." "Messenger, I do believe," answered the prince humbly. Then Owen was very joyful, and that same night, with John for a witness, he baptized the prince, giving him the new name of Constantine, after the first Christian emperor. On the following day Nodwengo, in the presence of Owen, who on this point would suffer no concealment, announced to the king that he had become a Christian. Umsuka heard, and for a while sat silent. Then he said in a troubled voice: "Truly, messenger, in the words of that book from which you read to us, I fear that you have come hither to bring, not peace but a sword. Now, when the witch doctors and the priests of fire learn this, that he whom I have chosen to succeed me has become the servant of another faith, they will stir up the soldiers, and there will be civil war. I pray you, therefore, keep the matter secret, at any rate for a while, seeing that the lives of many are at stake." "In this, my father," answered the prince, "I must do as the messenger bids me. But if you desire it, take from me the right of succession, and call back my brother from the northern mountains." "That by poison or the spear he may put all of us to death, Nodwengo? Be not afraid. Ere long, when he learns all that is happening here, your brother Hafela will come from the northern mountains, and the spears of his impis shall be countless as the stars of the sky. Messenger, you desire to draw us to the arms of your God, and myself, I am at times minded to follow the path of my son Nodwengo and seek a refuge there. But say, will they be strong enough to protect us from Hafela and the warriors of the north? Already he gathers his clans, and already my captains desert to him. By and by, in the springtime, may I be dead before the day, he will roll down upon us like a flood of water." "To fall back like waters from a wall of rock," answered Owen. "Let not your heart be troubled, for my master can protect his servants, and he will protect you. But first you must confess him openly, as your son has done." "Nay, I am too old to hurry," said the king with a sigh. "Your tale seems full of promise to one who is near the grave, but how can I know that it is more than a dream? And shall I abandon the worship of my fathers and change, or strive to change the customs of my people to follow after dreams? Nodwengo has chosen his part, and I do not blame him. Yet for the present I beseech you both to keep silence on this matter, lest to save bloodshed I should be driven to side against you." "So be it, King," said Owen, "but I warn you that truth has a loud voice, and that it is hard to hide the shining of a light in a dark place. Nor does it please my lord to be denied by those who confess him." "I am weary," replied the old king, and they saluted him and went. In obedience to the wish of Umsuka, his father, the conversion of Nodwengo was kept secret, and yet, none knew how, the thing leaked out. Soon the women in their huts and the soldiers by their watchfires whispered it in each other's ears that he who was appointed to be their future ruler had become a servant of the unknown God, that he had forsworn war and all the delights of men, that he would take but one wife and appear before the army not in the uniform of a general, but clad in a white robe, and carry not the broad spear but a cross of wood. Swiftly the strange story flew from mouth to mouth. Yet it was not altogether believed, till it chanced that one day, when he was reviewing a regiment, a soldier who was drunk with beer openly insulted the prince, calling him "a coward who worshipped a coward." Now men held their breaths, waiting to see this fool led away to die by torture of the ant-heap or some other dreadful doom. But the prince only answered: "Soldier, you are drunk, therefore I forgive you your words. Whether he whom you blaspheme will forgive you, I know not. Get you gone." The warriors stared and murmured, for by those words, wittingly or unwittingly, their general had confessed his faith, and that day they made ribald songs about him in the camp. But on the morrow, when they learned how that the man whom the prince spared had been seized by a lion and taken away as he sat at night with his companions in the bivouac, his mouth full of boasting of his own courage in offering insult to the prince and the new faith, then they looked at each other askance, and said little more of the matter. Doubtless it was chance, and yet this spirit whom the messenger preached was one of whom it seemed wisest not to speak lightly. But still the trouble grew, for by now the witch doctors, with Hosa at the head of them, were frightened for their place and power, and fomented it both openly and in secret. Of the women they asked what would become of them when men were allowed to take but one wife. Of the heads of kraals, how they would grow wealthy when their daughters ceased to be worth cattle. Of the councillors and generals, how the land could be protected from its foes when they were commanded to lay down the spear. Of the soldiers, whose only trade was war, how it would please them to till the fields like girls. Dismay took hold of the nation, and although they were much loved, there was open talk of killing or driving away the king and Nodwengo, who favoured the white man, and of setting up Hafela in their place. At length the crisis came, and in this fashion. The Amasuka, like many other African tribes, had a strange veneration for certain varieties of snakes, which they declared to be possessed by the spirits of their ancestors. It was a law among them that if one of these snakes entered a kraal, it must not be killed, or even driven away, under pain of death, but must be allowed to share with the human occupants any hut that it might select. As a result of this enforced hospitality, deaths from snakebite were numerous among the people. But when they happened in a kraal, its owners met with little sympathy, for the doctors explained that the real cause of them was the anger of some ancestral spirit toward his descendants. Now before John was dispatched to instruct Owen in the language of the Amasuka, a certain girl was sealed to him as his future wife. And this girl, who during his absence had been orphaned, he had married recently with the approval of Owen, who at this time was preparing her for baptism. On the third morning after his marriage, John appeared before his master in the last extremity of grief and terror. "Help me, messenger," he cried, "for my ancestral spirit has entered our hut and bitten my wife as she lay asleep." "Are you mad?" asked Owen. "What is an ancestral spirit, and how can it have bitten your wife?" "A snake," gasped John, "a green snake of the worst sort." Then Owen remembered the superstition, and snatching blue stone and spirits of wine from his medicine chest, he rushed to John's hut. As it happened, he was fortunately in time with his remedies, and succeeded in saving the woman's life, whereby his reputation as a doctor and a magician, already great, was considerably enlarged. "Where is the snake?" he asked, when at length she was out of danger. "Yonder, under the karass," answered John, pointing to a skin rug which lay in the corner. "Have you killed it?" "No, messenger," answered the man, "I dare not. Alas, we must live with the thing here in the hut till it chooses to go away." "Truly," said Owen, "I am ashamed to think that you who are a Christian should still believe so horrible a superstition. Does your faith teach you that the souls of men enter into snakes?" Now John hung his head. Then, snatching a kerry, he threw aside the karass, revealing a great green serpent 7 or 8 feet long. With fury he fell upon the reptile, killed it by repeated blows, and hurled it into the courtyard outside the house. "Behold, father," he said, "and judge whether I am still superstitious." Then his countenance fell, and he added, "Yet my life must pay for this deed, for it is an ancient law among us that to harm one of these snakes is death." "Have no fear," said Owen, "a way will be found out of this trouble." That afternoon Owen heard a great hubbub outside his kraal, and going to see what was the matter, he found a party of the witch doctors dragging John towards the place of judgment, which was by the king's house. Thither he followed, to discover that the case was already in course of being opened before the king, his council, and a vast audience of the people. Hosa was the accuser. In brief and pregnant sentences, producing the dead snake in proof of his argument, he pointed out the enormity of the offence against the laws of the Amasuka wherewith the prisoner was charged, demanding that the man who had killed the house of his ancestral spirit should instantly be put to death. "What have you to say?" asked the king of John. "This, O king," replied John, "that I am a Christian, and to me that snake is nothing but a noxious reptile. It bit my wife, and had it not been for the medicine of the messenger, she would have perished of the poison. Therefore I killed it before it could harm others." "It is a fair answer," said the king. "Hosa, I think that this man should go free." "The king's will is the law," replied Hosa bitterly. "But if the law were the king's will, the decision would be otherwise. This man has slain not a snake,
but that which held the spirit of an ancestor, and for the deed he deserves to die. Hearken, O King, for the business is larger than it seems. How are we to be governed henceforth? Are we to follow our ancient rules and customs, or must we submit ourselves to a new rule and a new custom? I tell you, O King, that the people murmur. They are without light, they wander in the darkness, they cannot understand. Play with us no more, but let us hear the truth, that we may judge of this matter." Umsuka looked at Owen, but made no reply. "I will answer you, Hokosa," said Owen, "for I am the spring of all this trouble, and at my command that man, my disciple, killed yonder snake. What is it? It is nothing but a reptile. No human spirit ever dwelt within it as you imagine in your superstition. You ask to hear the truth. Day by day I have preached it in your ears, and you have not listened, though many among you have listened and understood. What is it that you seek?" "We seek, Messenger, to be rid of you, your fantasies, and your religion, and we demand that our king should expel you and restore the ancient laws, or failing this, that you should prove your power openly before us all. Your word, O King." Umsuka thought for a while and answered: "This is my word, Hokosa. I will not drive the messenger from the land, for he is a good man. He saved my life, and there is virtue in his teaching, towards which I myself incline. Yet it is just that he should be asked to prove his power, so that an end may be put to doubt, and all of us may learn what God we are to worship." "How can I prove my power," asked Owen, "further than I have proved it already? Does Hokosa desire to set up his god against my God, the false against the true?" "I do," answered the wizard with passion, "and according to the issue let the judgment be. Let us halt no longer between two opinions. Let us become wholly Christian or rest wholly heathen, for to be divided is to be destroyed. The magic of the messenger is great. Once and for all let us learn if it is more than our magic. Let us put him and his doctrines to the trial by fire." "What is the trial by fire?" asked Owen. "You have seen something of it, white man, but not much. This is the trial by fire: to stand yonder before the face of the God of Thunder when a great tempest rages, not such a storm as you saw, but a storm that splits the heavens, and to come thence unscathed. Listen, I who am a heaven herd, I who know the signs of the weather, tell you that within 2 days such a tempest as this will break upon us. Then, white man, I and my companions will be ready to meet you on the plain. Take the cross by which you swear, and set it up yonder and stand by it, and with you your converts, Nodwengo the Prince, and this man whom you have named John, if they dare to go. Over against you, around the symbol of the God by which we swear, will stand I and my company, and we will pray our God, and you shall pray your God. Then the storm will break upon us, and when it is ended we shall learn which of us remain alive. If you and your cross are shattered, to us will be the victory. If we are laid low, take it for your own. Your judgment, King." Again Umsuka thought and answered: "So be it. Messenger, hear me. There is no need for you to accept this challenge, but if you will not accept it, then go from my country in peace, taking with you those who cleave to you. If, on the other hand, you do accept it, these shall be the stakes: that if you pass the trial unharmed, and the fire doctors are swept away, your creed shall be my creed and the creed of the land. But if the fire doctors prevail against you, then it shall be death or banishment to any who profess that creed. Now choose." "I have chosen," said Owen. "I will meet Hokosa and his company on the place of fire whenever he may appoint, but for the others I cannot say." "We will come with you," said Nodwengo and John with one voice. "Where you go, Messenger, we will surely follow." End of chapter 9. Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The second trial by fire.
When this momentous discussion was finished, as usual Owen preached before the king, expounding the Scriptures and taking for his subject the duty of faith. As he went back to his hut, he saw that the snake which John had killed had been set up on a pole in that part of the great place which served as a market, and that hundreds of natives were gathered beneath it, gesticulating and talking excitedly. "See the work of Hosa," he thought to himself. "Moses set up a serpent to save the people. Yonder wizard sets up one to destroy them." That evening Owen had no heart for his labours, for his mind was heavy at the prospect of the trial which lay before him. Not that he cared for his own life, for of this he scarcely thought. It was the prospects of his cause which troubled him. It seemed much to expect that Heaven again should throw over him the mantle of its special protection, and yet, if it did not do so, there was an end of his mission among the People of Fire. Well, he did not seek this trial. He would have avoided it if he could, but it had been thrust upon him, and he was forced to choose between it and the abandonment of the work which he had undertaken with such high hopes and pushed so far towards success. He did not choose the path; it had been pointed out to him to walk upon, and if it ended in a precipice, at least he would have done his best. As he thought thus, John entered the hut, panting. "What is the matter?" Owen asked. "Father, the people saw and pursued me because of the death of that accursed snake. Had I not run fast and escaped them, I think they would have killed me." "At least you have escaped, John, so be comforted and return thanks." "Father," said the man presently, "I know that you are great and can do many wonderful things, but have you in truth power over lightning?" "Why do you ask?" "Because a great tempest is brewing, and if you have not, we shall certainly be killed when we stand yonder on the place of fire." "John," he said, "I cannot speak to the lightning in a voice which it can hear. I cannot say to it, 'Go yonder,' or 'Come hither,' but He who made it can do so. Why do you tempt me with your doubts? Have I not told you the story of Elijah the prophet and the priests of Baal? Did Elijah's master forsake him, and shall he forsake us? Also, this is certain, that all the medicine of Hosa and his wizards will not turn a lightning flash by the breadth of a single hair. God alone can turn it, and for the sake of His cause among these people, I believe that He will do so." Thus Owen spoke on, till, in reproving the weakness of another, he felt his own faith come back to him, and remembering the past and how he had been preserved in it, the doubt and trouble went out of his mind to return no more. The third day, the day of trial, came. For 60 hours or more the heat of the weather had been intense. Indeed, during all that time the thermometer in Owen's hut, notwithstanding the protection of a thick hatch, had shown the temperature to vary between a maximum of 113 and a minimum of 101 degrees. Now, in the early morning, it stood at 108. "Will the storm break today?" asked Owen of Nodwengo, who came to visit him. "They say so, Messenger, and I think it by the feel of the air. If so, it will be a very great storm, for the heaven is full of fire. Already Hokosa and the doctors are at their rites upon the plain yonder, but there will be no need to join them till 2 hours after midday." "Is the cross ready?" asked Owen. "Yes, and set up. It is a heavy cross; 6 men could scarcely carry it. Oh, Messenger, I am not afraid, and yet, have you no medicine? If not, I fear that the lightning will fall upon the cross as it fell upon the pole, and then—" "Listen, Nodwengo," said Owen. "I know a medicine, but I will not use it. You see that wagon chain? Were one end of it buried in the ground, and the other with a spear blade made fast to it hung upon the top of the cross, we could live out the fiercest storm in safety. But I say that I will not use it. Are we witch doctors that we should take refuge in tricks? No, let faith be our shield, and if it fail us, then let us die. Pray now with me that it may not fail us." It was afternoon. All round the field of fire were gathered thousands upon thousands of the people of the Amasuka. The news of this duel between the god of the white man and their god had travelled far and wide, and even the very aged who could scarcely crawl, and the little ones who must be carried, were collected there to see the issue. Nor had they need to fear disappointment, for already the sky was half hidden by dense thunder clouds piled ridge on ridge, and the hush of the coming tempest lay upon the earth. Round about the meteor stone, which they called a god, each of them stirring a little gourd of medicine that was placed upon the ground before him, but uttering no word, were gathered Hosa and his followers to the number of 20. They were all of them arrayed in their snakeskin dresses and other wizard finery. Also each man held in his hand a wand fashioned from a human thigh bone. In front of the stone burned a little fire, which now and again Hokosa fed with aromatic leaves, at the same time pouring medicine from his bowl upon the holy stone. Opposite the symbol of the god, but at a good distance from it, a great cross of white wood was set up in the rock by a spot which the witch doctors themselves had chosen. Upon the banks of the stream, in the place apart, were the king, his councillors, and the regiment on guard, and with them Owen, the Prince Nodwengo, and John. "The storm will be fierce," said the king uneasily, glancing at the western sky, upon whose bosom the blue lightnings played with an incessant flicker. Then he bade those about him stand back, and calling Owen and the prince to him, said: "Messenger, my son tells me that your wisdom knows a plan whereby you may be preserved from the fury of the tempest. Use it, I pray of you, messenger, that your life may be saved, and with it the life of the only son who is left to me." "I cannot," answered Owen, "for thus by doubting him I should tempt my master. Still, it is not laid upon the prince to accompany through this trial. Let him stay here, and I alone will stand beneath the cross." "Stay, Nodwengo," implored the old man. "I did not think to live to hear my father bid me, one of the royal blood of the Amasuka, to desert my captain in the hour of battle, and hide myself in the grass like a woman," answered the prince with a bitter smile. "Nay, it may be that death awaits me yonder, but nothing except death shall keep me back from the venture." "It is well spoken," said the king. "Be it as you will." Now the company of wizards, leaving their medicine pots upon the ground, formed themselves in a treble line, and marching to where the king stood, they saluted him. Then they sang the praises of their god, and in a song that had been prepared, heaped insult upon the god of the white man and upon the messenger who preached him. To all of this Owen listened in silence. "He is a coward," cried their spokesman. "He has not a word to say. He skulks there in his white robes behind the majesty of the king. Let him go forth and stand by his piece of wood. He dare not go. He thinks the hillside safer. Come out, little white man, and we will show you how we manage the lightnings. Ah, they shall fly about you like spears in battle. You shall throw yourself upon the ground and shriek in terror, and then they will lick you up and you will be no more, and there will be an end of you and the symbol of your god." "Cease your boastings," said the king shortly, "and get you back to your place, knowing that if it should chance that the white man conquers, you will be called upon to answer for these words." "We shall be ready, O king," they cried, and amidst the cheers of the vast audience they marched back to their station, still singing the blasphemous mocking song. Now to the west all the heavens were black as night, though the eastern sky still showed blue and cloudless. Nature lay oppressed with silence, silence intense and unnatural, and so great was the heat that the air danced visibly above the ironstone as it dances about a glowing stove. Suddenly the quietude was broken by a moaning sound of wind. The grass stirred, the leaves of the trees began to shiver, and an icy breath beat upon Owen's brow. "Let us be going," he said, and lifting the ivory crucifix above his head, he passed the stream and walked toward the wooden cross. After him came the Prince Nodwengo, wearing his royal dress of leopard skin, and after him John, arrayed in a linen robe. As the little procession appeared to their view, some of the soldiers began to mock, but almost instantly the laughter died away. Rude as they were, these savages understood that here was no occasion for their mirth, that the three men indeed seemed clothed with a curious dignity. Perhaps it was their slow and quiet gait, perhaps a sense of the errand upon which they were bound, or it may have been the strange unearthly light that fell upon them from over the edge of the storm cloud. At the least, as the multitude became aware, their appearance was impressive. They reached the cross and took up their stations there, Owen in front of it, Nodwengo to the right, and John to the left. Now a sharp squall of strong wind swept across the place, and with it came a flaw of rain. It passed by, and the storm that had been muttering and growling in the distance began to burst. The great clouds seemed to grow and swell, and from the breast of them swift lightnings leapt, to be met by other lightnings rushing upwards from the earth. The air was filled with a tumult of uncertain wind, and a hiss as of distant rain. Then the batteries of thunder were opened, and the world shook with their volume. Down from on high the flashes fell blinding and incessant, and by the light of them the fire doctors could be seen running to and fro, pointing now here and now there with their wands of human bones, and pouring the medicines from their gourds upon the ground and upon each other. Owen and his two companions could be seen also, standing quietly with clasped hands, while above them towered the tall white cross. At length the storm was straight overhead. Slowly it advanced in its awe-inspiring might as flash after flash, each more fantastic and horrible than the last, smote upon the floor of ironstone. It played about the shapes of the doctors, who in the midst of it looked like devils in an inferno. It crept onwards toward the station of the cross, but it never reached the cross. One flash struck indeed within 50 paces of where Owen stood. Then of a sudden a marvel happened, or something which to this day the people of fire talk of as a marvel, for in an instant the rain began to pour like a wall of water stretching from earth to heaven, and the wind changed. It had been blowing from the west, now it blew from the east with the force of a gale. It blew and rolled the tempest back upon itself, causing it to return to the regions whence it had gathered. At the very foot of the cross its march was stayed. There was the water line, as straight as if it had been drawn with a rule. The thunder clouds that were pressed forward met the clouds that were pressed back, and together they seemed to come to earth, filling the air with a gloom so dense that the eye could not pierce it. To the west was a wall of blackness towering to the heavens; to the east light, blue and unholy, gleamed upon the white cross and the figures of its watchers. For some seconds, 20 or more, there was a lull, and then it seemed as though all hell had broken loose upon the world. The wall of blackness became a wall of flame, in which strange and ardent shapes appeared ascending and descending. The thunder bellowed till the mountains rocked, and in one last blaze, awful and indescribable, the skies melted into a deluge of fire. In the flare of it Owen thought that he saw the figures of men falling this way and that. Then he staggered against the cross for support, and his senses failed him. When they returned again, he perceived the storm being drawn back from the face of the pale earth like a pall from the face of the dead, and he heard a murmur of fear and wonder rising from 10,000 throats. Well might they fear and wonder, for of the 21 wizards 11 were dead, 4 were paralysed by shock, 5 were flying in their terror, and one, Hosa himself, stood staring at the fallen, a very picture of despair. Nor was this all. For the meteor stone, with a human shape, which for generations the people of fire had worshipped as a god, lay upon the plain in fused and shattered fragments. The people saw, and a sound as of a hollow groan of terror went up from them. Then they were silent. For a while Owen and his companions were silent also, since their hearts were too full for speech. Then he said, "As the snake fell harmless from the hand of Paul, so has the lightning turned back from me, who strive to follow in his footsteps, working death and dismay among those who would have harmed us. May forgiveness be theirs who were without understanding. Brethren, let us return and make report to the king." Now as they had come, so they went back, first Owen with the crucifix, next to him Nodwengo, and last of the three John. They drew near to the king, when suddenly, moved by a common impulse, the thousands of the people upon the banks of the stream with one accord threw themselves upon their knees before Owen, calling him God and offering him worship. Infected by the contagion, Umsuka, his guard, and his counsellors followed their example, so that of all the multitude Hosa alone remained upon his feet, standing by his dishonoured and riven deity. "Rise!" cried Owen, aghast. "Would you do sacrilege and offer worship to a man? Rise, I command you!" Then the king rose, saying, "You are no man, messenger. You are a spirit." "He is a spirit," repeated the multitude after him. "I am not a spirit, I am yet a man," cried Owen again. "But the Spirit whom I serve has made his power manifest in me, his servant. And your idols are smitten with the sword of his power, O ye sons of fire." Hosa still lives, let him be brought hither." They fetched Hosa, and he stood before them.
"You have seen, wizard," said the king. "What have you to say?" "Nothing," answered Hokosa, "save that victory is to the cross and to the white man who preaches it, for his magic is greater than our magic. By his command the tempest was stayed, and the boasts we hurled fell back upon our heads and the head of our God to destroy us." "Yes," said the king, "victory is to the cross, and henceforth the cross shall be worshipped in this land, or at least no other god shall be worshipped. Let us be going. Come with me, messenger, Lord of the Lightning."
End of chapter 10. Of the Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Wisdom of the Dead. On the morrow Owen baptized the king, many of his councillors, and some 20 others whom he considered fit to receive the rite. Also he dispatched his first convert, John, with other messengers, on a 3 months' journey to the coast, giving them letters acquainting the bishop and others with his marvellous success, and praying that missionaries might be sent to assist him in his labours. Now day by day the church grew till it numbered hundreds of souls, and thousands more hovered on its threshold. From dawn to dark Owen toiled, preaching, exhorting, confessing, gathering in his harvest, and from dark to midnight he pored over his translation of the Scriptures, teaching Nodwengo and a few others how to read and write them. But although his efforts were crowned with so signal and extraordinary a triumph, he was well aware of the dangers that threatened the life of the infant church. Many accepted it indeed, and still more tolerated it, but there remained multitudes who regarded the new religion with suspicion and veiled hatred. Nor was this strange, seeing that the hearts of men are not changed in an hour, or their ancient customs easily overset. On one point indeed Owen had to give way. The Amasuka were a polygamous people. All their law and traditions were interwoven with polygamy, and to abolish that institution suddenly and with violence would have brought their social fabric to the ground. Now, as he knew well, the missionary church declares in effect that no man can be both a Christian and a polygamist. Therefore, among the followers of that custom, the missionary church makes but little progress. Not without many qualms and hesitations, Owen, having only the Scriptures to consult, came to a compromise with his converts. If a man already married to more than one wife wished to become a Christian, he permitted him to do so upon the condition that he took no more wives, while a man unmarried at the time of his conversion might take one wife only. This decree, liberal as it was, caused great dissatisfaction among both men and women. But it was as nothing compared to the feeling that was evoked by Owen's preaching against all war not undertaken in self-defence, and against the strict laws which he prevailed upon the king to pass, suppressing the practice of wizardry, and declaring the chief or doctor who caused a man to be smelt out and killed upon charges of witchcraft to be guilty of murder. At first, whenever Owen went abroad, he was surrounded by thousands of people who followed him in the expectation that he would work miracles, which, after his exploits with the lightning, they were well persuaded that he could do if he chose. But he worked no more miracles. He only preached to them a doctrine adverse to their customs and foreign to their thoughts. So it came about that in time, when the novelty was gone off and the story of his victory over the fire god had grown stale, although the work of conversion went on steadily, many of the people grew weary of the white man and his doctrines. Soon this weariness found expression in various ways, and in none more markedly than by the constant desertions from the ranks of the king's regiments. At first, by Owen's advice, the king tolerated these desertions, but at length, having obtained information that an entire regiment purposed absconding at dawn, he caused it to be surrounded and seized by night. Next morning he addressed that regiment, saying, "Soldiers, you think that because I have become a Christian, and will not permit unnecessary bloodshed, I am also become a fool. I will teach you otherwise. 1 man in every 20 of you shall be killed, and henceforth any soldier who attempts to desert will be killed also." The order was carried out, for Owen could not find a word to say against it. with the result that desertions almost ceased, though not before the king had lost some 8,000 or 9,000 of his best soldiers. Worst of all, these soldiers had gone to join Hafela in his mountain fastnesses, and the rumour grew that ere long they would appear again to claim the crown for him or to take it by force of arms. Now, too, a fresh complication arose. The old king sickened of his last illness, and soon it became known that he must die. A month later, die he did, passing away peacefully in Owen's arms, and with his last breath exhorting his people to cling to the Christian religion, to take Nodwengo for their king, and to be faithful to him. The king died, and that same day was buried by Owen in the gloomy resting place of the royal blood of the People of Fire, where a Christian priest now set foot for the first time. On the morrow Nodwengo was proclaimed king with much ceremony in face of the people and of all the army that remained to him. One captain raised a cry for Hafela his brother. Nodwengo caused him to be seized and brought before him. "Man," he said, "on this my coronation day I will not stain my hand with blood. Listen, you cry upon Hafela, and to Hafela you shall go, taking him this message. Tell him that I, Nodwengo, have succeeded to the crown of Umsuka my father, by his will and the will of the people. Tell him it is true that I have become a Christian, and that Christians follow not after war, but peace. Tell him, however, that though I am a Christian, I have not forgotten how to fight or how to rule. It has reached my ears that it is his purpose to attack me with a great force which he is gathering, and to possess himself of my throne. If he should choose to come, I shall be ready to meet him, but I counsel him against coming, for it will be to find his death. Let him stay where he is in peace and be my subject, or let him go afar with those that cleave to him, and set up a kingdom of his own. For then I shall not follow him, but let him not dare to lift a spear against me his sovereign, since if he does so, he shall be treated as a rebel and find the doom of a rebel. Be gone, and show your face here no more." The man crept away crestfallen, but all who heard that speech broke into cheering, which, as its purport was repeated from rank to rank, spread far and wide. For now the army learned that in becoming a Christian, Nodwengo had not become a woman. Of this indeed he soon gave them ample proof. The old king's grip upon things had been lax; that of Nodwengo was like iron. He practised no cruelties, and did injustice to none, but his discipline was severe, and soon the regiments were brought to a greater pitch of proficiency than they had ever reached before, although they were now allowed to marry when they pleased, a boon that hitherto had been denied to them. Moreover, by Owen's help, he designed an entirely new system of fortification of the kraal and surrounding hills, which would, it was thought, make the place impregnable. These and many other acts, equally vigorous and far-seeing, put new heart into the nation. Also, the report of them put fear into Hafela, who, it was rumoured, had now given up all idea of attack. Some there were, however, who looked upon these changes with little love, and Hosa was one of them. After his defeat in the duel by fire, for a while his spirit was crushed. Hitherto he had more or less been a believer in the protecting influence of his own god, or fetish, who would, as he thought, hold his priests scatheless from the lightning. Often and often had he stood in past days upon that plain, while the great tempests broke around his head, and returned thence unharmed, attributing to sorcery a safety that was really due to chance. From time to time indeed a priest was killed, but, so his companions held, the misfortune resulted invariably from the man's neglect of some rite, or was a mark of the anger of the heavens. Now Hosa had lived to see all these convictions shattered. He had seen the lightning, which he pretended to be able to control, roll back upon him from the foot of the Christian cross, reducing his god to nothingness and his companions to corpses. At first Hosa was dismayed, but as time went on, hope came back to him. Stripped of his offices and power, and from the greatest in the nation after the king, become one of small account, still no harm or violence was attempted towards him. He was left wealthy and in peace, and living thus he watched and listened with open eyes and ears, waiting till the tide should turn. It seemed that he would not have long to wait, for reasons that have been told. "Why do you sit here like a vulture on a rock?" asked the girl Noma, whom he had taken to wife.
when you might be yonder with Hafela, preparing him by your wisdom for the coming war?" "Because I am a king vulture, and I wait for the sick bull to die," he answered, pointing to the great place beneath him. "Say, why should I bring Hafela to prey upon a carcass I have marked down for my own?" "Now you speak well," said Noma. "The bull suffers from a strange disease, and when he is dead, another must lead the herd." "That is so," answered her husband, "and therefore I am patient." It was shortly after this conversation that the old king died, with results very different from those which Hokosa had anticipated. Although he was a Christian, to his surprise Nodwengo showed that he was also a strong ruler, and that there was little chance of the sceptre slipping from his hand. None indeed while the white teacher was there to guide him. "What will you do now, Hokosa?" asked Noma his wife upon a certain day. "Will you turn to Hafela after all?" "No," answered Hokosa. "I will consult my ancient lore. Listen, whatever else is false, this is true, that magic exists, and I am its master. For a while it seemed to me that the white man was greater at the art than I am, but of late I have watched him and listened to his doctrines, and I believe that this is not so. It is true that in the beginning he read my plans in a dream or otherwise. It is true that he hurled the lightning back upon my head, but I hold that these things were accidents. Again and again he has told us that he is not a wizard, and if this be so, he can be overcome." "How, husband?" "How? By wizardry. This very night, Noma, with your help I will consult the dead, as I have done in bygone time, and learn the future from their lips which cannot lie." "So be it, though the task is hateful to me, and I hate you who force me to it." Noma answered thus with passion, but her eyes shone as she spoke, for those who have once tasted the cup of magic are ever drawn to drink of it again, even when they fear the draught. It was midnight, and Hokosa with his wife stood in the burying ground of the kings of the Amasuka. Before Owen came upon his mission, it was death to visit this spot, except upon the occasion of the laying to rest of one of the royal blood, or to offer the annual sacrifice to the spirits of the dead. Even beneath the bright moon that shone upon it, the place seemed terrible. Here in the bosom of the hills was an amphitheatre, surrounded by walls of rock varying from 500 to 1,000 feet in height. In this amphitheatre grew great mimosa thorns, and above them towered pillars of granite, set there not by the hand of man but by nature. It would seem that the Amasuka, led by some fine instinct, had chosen these columns as fitting memorials of their kings. At the least, a departed monarch lay at the foot of each of them. The smallest of these unhewn obelisks, it was about 50 feet high, marked the resting place of Umsuka, and deep into its granite Owen with his own hand had cut the dead king's name and date of death, surmounting his inscription with a symbol of the cross. Towards this pillar Hokosa made his way through the wet grass, followed by Noma his wife. Presently they were there, standing one upon each side of a little mound of earth, more like an ant heap than a grave. For, after the custom of his people, Umsuka had been buried sitting. At the foot of each of the pillars rose a heap of similar shape, but many times as large. The kings who slept there were accompanied to their resting places by numbers of their wives and servants, who had been slain in solemn sacrifice, that they might attend their lord whithersoever he should wander. "What is it that you desire and would do?" asked Noma in a hushed voice. Bold as she was, the place and the occasion awed her. "I desire wisdom from the dead," he answered. "Have I not already told you? And can I not win it with your help?" "What dead, husband?" "Umsuka the king. Ah, I served him living, and at the last he drove me away from his side. Now he shall serve me, and out of the nowhere I will call him back to mine." "Will not this symbol defeat you?" And Noma pointed at the cross hewn in the granite. At her words a sudden gust of rage seemed to shake the wizard. His still eyes flashed, his lips turned livid, and with them he spat upon the cross. "It has no power," he said. "May it be accursed, and may he who believes therein hang thereon. It has no power. But even if it had, according to the tale of that white liar, such things as I would do have been done beneath its shadow.
By it the dead have been raised, aye, dead kings have been dragged from death and forced to tell the secrets of the grave. Come, come, let us to the work." "What must I do, husband?" "You shall sit you there, even as a corpse sits, and there for a little while you shall die. Yes, your spirit shall leave you, and I will fill your body with the soul of him who sleeps beneath, and through your lips I will learn his wisdom, to whom all things are known." "It is terrible. I am afraid," she said. "Cannot this be done otherwise?" "It cannot," he answered. "The spirits of the dead have no shape or form. They are invisible, and can speak only in dreams, or through the lips of one in whose pulses life still lingers, though soul and body be already parted. Have no fear. Ere his ghost leaves you, it shall recall your own, which till the corpse is cold stays ever close at hand. I did not think to find a coward in you, Noma." "I am not a coward, as you know well," she answered passionately, "for many a deed of magic have we dared together in past days. But this is fearsome, to die that my body may become the home of the ghost of a dead man, who perchance, having entered it, will abide there, leaving my spirit houseless, or perchance will shut up the doors of my heart in such fashion that they can never be opened. Can it not be done by trance as aforetime?"
"Tell me, Hokosa, how often have you thus talked with the dead?"
"Thrice, Noma."
"And what chanced to them through whom you talked?"
"Two lived and took no harm. The third died because the awakening medicine lacked power. Yet fear nothing, that which I have with me is of the best. Noma, you know my plight. I must win wisdom or fall forever, and you alone can help me. For under this new rule I can no longer buy a youth or maid for purposes of witchcraft, even if one could be found fitted to the work. Choose then, shall we go back or forward? Here trance will not help us, for those entranced cannot read the future, nor can they hold communion with the dead, being but asleep. Choose, Noma." "I have chosen," she answered. "Never yet have I turned my back upon a venture, nor will I do so now. Come life, come death, I will submit me to your wish, though there are few women who would dare as much for any man. Nor in truth do I do this for you, Hokosa. I do it because I seek power, and thus only can we win it who are fallen. Also I love all things strange, and desire to commune with the dead, and to know that, if for some few minutes only, at least my woman's breast has held the spirit of a king. Yet I warn you, make no fault in your magic, for should I die beneath it, then I, who desire to live on and to be great, will haunt you and be avenged upon you." "Oh, Noma," he said, "if I believed there was any danger for you, should I ask you to suffer this thing, I who love you more even than you love power, more than my life, more than anything that is or ever can be?"
"I know it, and it is to that I trust," the woman answered. "Now begin, before my courage leaves me."
"Good," he said. "Seat yourself there upon the mound, resting your head against the stone." She obeyed, and taking thongs of hide which he had made ready, Hokosa bound her wrists and ankles, as these people bind the wrists and ankles of corpses. Then he knelt before her, staring into her face with his solemn eyes, and muttering, "Obey and sleep." Presently her limbs relaxed, and her head fell forward. "Do you sleep?" he asked.
"I sleep. Whither shall I go? It is the true sleep. Test me."
"Pass to the house of the white man, my rival. Are you with him?"
"I am with him."
"What does he?"
"He lies in slumber on his bed, and in his slumber he mutters the name of a woman, and tells her that he loves her, but that duty is more than love. Oh, call me back, I cannot stay. A presence guards him and thrusts me thence."
"Return," said Hokosa, starting. "Pass through the earth beneath you, and tell me what you see."
"I see the body of the king, but were it not for his royal ornaments, none would know him now."
"Return," said Hokosa, "and let the eyes of your spirit be open. Look around you and tell me what you see." "I see the shadows of the dead," she answered. "They stand about you, gazing at you with angry eyes. But when they come near you, something drives them back, and I cannot understand what it is they say."
"Is the ghost of Umsuka among them?"
"It is among them."
"Bid him prophesy the future to me."
"I have bidden him, but he does not answer. If you would hear him speak, it must be through the lips of my body. And first my body must be emptied of my ghost, that his may find a place therein."
"Say, can his spirit be compelled?"
"It can be compelled, or that part of it which still hover near this spot, if you dare to speak the words you know. But first its house must be made ready. Then the words must be spoken, and all must be done before a man can count 300. For should the blood begin to clot about my heart, it will be still forever."
"Hearken," said Hokosa. "When the medicine that I shall give does its work, and the spirit is loosened from your body, let it not go afar; no, whatever tempts or threatens it, and suffer not that the death cord be severed, lest flesh and ghost be parted for ever."
"I hear and I obey. Be swift, for I grow weary." Then Hokosa took from his pouch 2 medicines, one a paste in a box, the other a fluid in a gourd. Taking of the paste, he knelt upon the grave before the entranced woman and swiftly smeared it upon the mucous membrane of the mouth and throat. Also he thrust pellets of it into the ears, the nostrils, and the corners of the eyes. The effect was almost instantaneous. A change came over the girl's lovely face, the last awful change of death. Her cheeks fell in, her chin dropped, her eyes opened, and her flesh quivered convulsively. The wizard saw it all by the bright moonlight. Then he took up his part in this unholy drama. All that he did cannot be described, because it is indescribable. The Witch of Endor repeated no formula, but she raised the dead, and so did Hokosa the wizard. But he buried his face in the grey dust of the grave. He blew with his lips into the dust. He clutched at the dust with his hands, and when he raised his face again, lo, it was grey like the dust. Now began the marvel, for though the woman before him remained a corpse, from the lips of that corpse a voice issued, and its sound was horrible, for the accent and tone of it were masculine, and the instrument through which it spoke, Noma's throat, was feminine. Yet it could be recognized as the voice of Umsuka, the dead king.
"Why have you summoned me from my rest, Hokosa?" muttered the voice from the lips of the huddled corpse. "Because I would learn the future, Spirit of the King," answered the wizard boldly, but saluting as he spoke. "You are dead, and to your sight all the gates are opened. By the power that I have, I command you to show me what you see therein concerning myself, and to point out to me the path that I should follow to attain my ends and the ends of her in whose breast you dwell." At once the answer came, always in the same horrible voice. "Hearken to your fate for this world, Hokosa the wizard. You shall triumph over your rival, the white man, the messenger, and by your hand he shall perish, passing to his appointed place, where you must meet again. By that to which you cling you shall be betrayed. Ah, you shall lose that which you love, and follow after that which you do not desire. In the grave of error you shall find truth. From the depths of sin you shall pluck righteousness. When these words fall upon your ears again, then, wizard, take them for a sign, and let your heart be turned. That which you deem accursed shall lift you up on high. High shall you be set above the nation and its king, and from age to age the voice of the people shall praise you. Yet in the end comes judgment, and there shall the sin and the atonement strive together, and in that hour, wizard, you shall—" Thus the voice spoke, strongly at first, but growing ever more feeble as the sparks of life departed from the body of the woman, till at length it ceased altogether. "What shall chance to me in that hour?" Hokosa asked eagerly, placing his ears against Noma's lips. No answer came, and the wizard knew that if he would drag his wife back from the door of death he must delay no longer.
Dashing the sweat from his eyes with one hand, with the other he seized the gourd of fluid that he had placed ready, and thrusting back her head, he poured of its contents down her throat and waited a while. She did not move. In an extremity of terror he snatched a knife, and with a single cut severed a vein in her arm. Then, taking some of the fluid that remained in the gourd in his hand, he rubbed it roughly upon her brow and throat and heart. Now Noma's fingers stirred, and now, with horrible contortions and every symptom of agony, life returned to her. The blood flowed from her wounded arm, slowly at first, then more fast, and lifting her head she spoke. "Take me hence," she cried, "or I shall go mad, for I have seen and heard things too terrible to be spoken." "What have you seen and heard?" he asked, while he cut the thongs which bound her wrists and feet. "I do not know," Noma answered, weeping. "The vision of them passes from me, but all the distances of death were open to my sight. Yes, I travelled through the distances of death. In them I met him who was the king, and he lay cold within me, speaking to my heart. And as he passed from me, he looked upon the child which I shall bear, and cursed it, and surely accursed it shall be. Take me hence, O you most evil man, for of your magic I have had enough, and from this day forth I am haunted." "Have no fear," answered Hosa. "You have made the journey whence but few return, and yet, as I promised you, you have returned to where the greatness you desire, and that I sent you forth to win. For henceforth we shall be great. Look, the dawn is breaking, the dawn of life and the dawn of power, and the mists of death and of disgrace roll back before us. Now the path is clear, the dead have shown it to me, and of wizardry I shall need no more." "Ay," answered Noma, "but night follows dawn, as the dawn follows night. And through the darkness and the daylight, I tell you, wizard, henceforth I am haunted. Also, be not so sure, for though I know not what the dead have spoken to you, yet it lingers on my mind that their words have many meanings. Nay, speak to me no more, but let us fly from this dread home of ghosts, this habitation of the spirit folk which we have violated." So the wizard and his wife crept from that solemn place, and as they went they saw the dawn beams lighting upon the white cross that was reared in the plain of fire. End of chapter 11. Of the Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The message of Hosa. The weeks passed by, and Hosa sat in his kraal weaving a great plot. None suspected him any more, for though he did not belong to it, he was heard to speak well of the new faith, and to acknowledge that the god of fire which he had worshipped was a false god. He was humble also towards the king, but he craved to withdraw himself from all matters of the state, saying that now he had but one desire, to tend his herds and garden, and to grow old in peace with the new wife whom he had chosen and whom he loved. Owen too he greeted courteously when he met him, sending him gifts of corn and cattle for the service of his church. Moreover, when a messenger came from Hafela making proposals to him, he drove him away and laid the matter before the council of the king. Yet that messenger, who was hunted from the kraal, took back a secret word for Hafela's ear. "It is not always winter," was the word, "and it may chance that in the springtime you shall hear from me." And again, "Say to the Prince Hafela that though my face towards him is like a storm, yet behind the clouds the sun shines ever." At length there came a day when Noma, his wife, was brought to bed. Hosa, her husband, tended her alone, and when the child was born he groaned aloud and would not suffer her to look upon its face. Yet, lifting herself, she saw. "Did I not tell you it was accursed?" she wailed. "Take it away!" and she sank back in a swoon. So he took the child and buried it deep in the cattle yard by night. After this it came about that Noma, who, though her mind owned the sway of his, had never loved him overmuch, hated her husband Hosa. Yet he had this power over her that she could not leave him. But he loved her more and more, and she had this power over him that she could always draw him to her. Great as her beauty had ever been, after the birth of the child it grew greater day by day. But it was an evil beauty, the beauty of a witch, and this fate fell upon her, that she feared the dark and would never be alone after the sun had set. When she was recovered from her illness, Noma sat one night in her hut, and Hokosa sat there also, watching her. The evening was warm, but a bright fire burned in the hut, and she crouched upon a stool by the fire, glancing continually over her shoulder. "Why do you bide by the fire, seeing that it is so hot, Noma?" he asked. "Because I fear to be away from the light," she answered, adding, "Oh, accursed man! For your own ends you have caused me to be bewitched, and that which was born of me also. And bewitched I am by those shadows that you bade me seek, which now will never leave me. Nor is this all. You swore to me that if I would do your will, I should become great, and you took me from one who would have made me great, and whom I should have pushed on to victory. But now it seems that for nothing I made that awful voyage into the deeps of death, and for nothing, yet living am I become the sport of those that dwell there. How am I greater than I was? I who am but the second wife of a fallen witch doctor, who sits in the sun day by day, while age gathers on his head like frost upon a bush. Where are all your high schemes now? Where is the fruit of wisdom that I gathered for you? Answer, wizard, whom I have learned to hate, but from whom I cannot escape." "Truly," said Hokosa in a bitter voice, "for all my sins against them, the heavens have laid a heavy fate upon my head, that thus with flesh and spirit I should worship a woman who loathes me. One comfort only is left to me, that you dare not take my life, lest another should be added to those shadows who companion you, and what I bid you, that you must still do. Ay, you fear the dark, Noma, yet did I command you to rise and go stand alone through the long night yonder, in the burying place of the kings, why, you must obey. Come, I command you, go!" "Nay, nay!" she wailed in an extremity of terror. Yet she rose and went towards the door sideways, for her hands were outstretched in supplication to him. "Come back," he said, "and listen. If a hunter has nurtured up a fierce dog, wherewith alone he can gain his livelihood, he tries to tame that dog by love, does he not? And if it will not become gentle, then, the brute being necessary to him, he tames it by fear. I am the hunter, and Noma, you are the hound. And since this curse is laid on me that I cannot live without you, why, I must master you as best I may. Yet believe me, I would not cause you fear or pain, and it saddens me that you should be haunted by these sick fancies, for they are nothing more. I have seen such cases before today, and I have noted that they can be cured by mixing with fresh faces and travelling in new countries. Noma, I think it would be well that, after your late sickness, according to the custom of the women of our people, you should part from me a while and go upon a journey of purification." "Whither shall I go, and who will go with me?" she asked sullenly. "I will find you companions, women discreet and skilled, and as to where you shall go, I will tell you. You shall go upon an embassy to the Prince Hafela." "Are you not afraid that I should stop there?" she asked again, with a flash of her eyes. "It is true that I never learned all the story, yet I thought that the prince was not so glad to hand me back to you as you would have had me to believe. The price you paid for me must have been good, Hokosa, and mayhap it had to do with the death of a king." "I am not afraid," he answered, setting his teeth, "because I know that whatever your heart may desire, my will follows you. And while I live, that is a cord you cannot break unless I choose to loose it. Noma, I command you to be faithful to me, and to return to me, and these commands you must obey. Hearken. You taunted me just now, saying that I sat like a dotard in the sun and advanced you nothing. Well, I will advance you for both our sakes, but mostly for your own, since you desire it, and it must be done through the Prince Hafela. I cannot leave this kraal, for day and night I am watched, and before I had gone an hour's journey I should be seized. Also, here I have work to do. But the place of purification is secret, and when you reach it you need not bide there. You can travel on into the mountains till you come to the town of the Prince Hafela. He will receive you gladly,
and you shall whisper this message in his ear. These are the words of Hosa my husband, which he has set in my mouth to deliver to you, O Prince. Be guided by them and grow great. Reject them and die a wanderer, a little man of no account. But first, this is the price that you shall swear by the sacred oath to pay to Hosa, if his wisdom finds favour in your sight, and through it you come to victory. That after you the king, he Hosa shall be the first man in our land, the general of the armies, the captain of the council, the head of the doctors, and that to him shall be given half the cattle of Nodwengo, who now is king. Also to him shall be given power to stamp out the new faith which overruns the land like a foreign weed, and to deal as he thinks fit with those who cling thereto. Now, Noma, when he has sworn this oath in your ear, calling down ruin upon his own head, should he break one word of it, and not before, you shall continue the message thus: These are the other words that Hosa set in my mouth. Know, O Prince, that the king your brother grows very strong, for he is a great soldier who learned his art in bygone wars. Also the white man that is named Messenger has taught him many things as to the building of forts and walls and the drilling and discipline of men. So strong is he that you can scarcely hope to conquer him in open war. Yet snakes may crawl where men cannot walk. Therefore, Prince, let your part be that of a snake. Do you send an embassy to the king, your brother, and say to him, My brother, you have been preferred before me, and set up to be king in my place. And because of this my heart is bitter, so bitter that I have gathered my strength to make war upon you. Yet at the last I have taken another counsel, bethinking me that if we fight, in the end it may chance that neither of us will be left alive to rule, and that the people also will be brought to nothing. To the north there lies a good country and a wide, where but few men live, and thither I would go, setting the mountains and the river between us. For there, far beyond your borders, I also can be a king. Now to reach this country I must travel by the pass that is not far from your great place, and I pray you that you will not attack my impis, or the women and children that I shall send, and a guard before them, to await me in the plain beyond the mountains, seeing that these can only journey slowly. Let us pass by in peace, my brother, for so shall our quarrel be ended. But if you do so much as lift a single spear against me, then I will give you battle, setting my fortune against your fortune, and my God against your God. Such are the words that the embassy shall deliver into the ears of the king, Nodwengo. And it shall come about that when he hears them, Nodwengo, whose heart is gentle and who seeks not war, shall answer softly, saying, Go in peace, my brother, and live in peace in the land which you would win. Then shall you, Hafela, send on the most of your cattle and the women and the children through that pass in the mountains, bidding them to await you in the plain. And after a while you shall follow them with your impis. But these shall not travel in war array, for carriers must bear their fighting shields in bundles, and their stabbing spears shall be rolled up in mats. Now on the 6th day of your journey you shall camp at the mouth of the pass which the cattle and the women have already travelled, and his outposts and spies will bring it to the ears of the king that your force is sleeping there, purposing to climb the pass on the morrow. But on that night, so soon as the darkness falls, you must rise up with your captains and your regiments, leaving your fires burning and men about your fires, and shall travel very swiftly across the valley, so that an hour before the dawn you reach the second range of mountains, and pass it by the gorge which is the burying place of kings. Here you shall light a fire, which those who watch will believe to be but a fire of a herdsman who is acold. But I, Hosa, also shall be watching, and when I see that fire, I will creep with some whom I can trust to the little northern gate of the outer wall, and we will spear those that guard it, and open the gate that your army may pass through. Then, before the regiments can stand to their arms, or those within it are awakened, you must storm the inner walls, and by the light of the burning huts put the dwellers in the great place to the spear, and the rays of the rising sun shall crown you king. Follow this counsel of mine, O Prince Hafela, and all will go well with you. Neglect it and be lost. There is but one thing which you need fear. It is the magic of the messenger, to whom it is given to read the secret thoughts of men. But of him take no account, for he is my charge, and before ever you set foot within the great place, he shall have taken his answer back to him who sent him." Hokosa finished speaking. "Have you heard?" he said to Noma. "I have heard." "Then speak the message." She repeated it word for word, making no fault. "Have no fear," she added. "I shall forget nothing when I stand before the prince." "You are a woman, but your counsel is good. What think you of the plan, Noma?" "It is deep and well laid," she answered, "and surely it would succeed were it not for one thing. The white man, Messenger, will be too clever for you, for as you say, he is a reader of the thoughts of men." "Can the dead read men's thoughts? Or if they can, do they cry them on the market place or into the ears of kings?" asked Hokosa. "Have I not told you that, before I see the signal fire yonder, the messenger shall sleep sound? I have a medicine, Noma, a slow medicine that none can trace." "The messenger may sleep sound, Hokosa, and yet perchance he may pass on his message to another, and with it his magic. Who can say? Still, husband, strike on for power and greatness and revenge, letting the blow fall where it will." End of chapter 12. Of the Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Basket of Fruit. 3 days later it was announced that, according to the custom of the women of the People of Fire, Noma, having given birth to a stillborn child, was about to start upon a journey to the Mount of Purification. Here she would abide a while, and make sacrifice to the spirit of her ancestors, that they might cease to be angry with her, and in the future protect her from such misfortunes. This not unusual domestic incident excited little comment, although it was remarked that the 4 matrons by whom she was to be accompanied, in accordance with the tribal etiquette, were all of them the wives of soldiers who had deserted to Hafela. Indeed, the king himself noticed as much, when Hokosa made the customary formal application to him to sanction the expedition. "So be it," he said, "though myself I have lost faith in such rites. Also, Hokosa, I think it likely that although your wife goes out with company, she will return alone." "Why, King?" asked Hokosa. "For this reason, that those who travel with her have husbands yonder at the town of the Prince Hafela, and that the Mount of Purification is on the road thither. Having gone so far, they may go farther. Well, let them go, for I desire to have none among my people whose hearts turn otherwhere. And it would not be wonderful if they should choose to seek their lords. But perchance, Hokosa, there are some in this town who may use them as messengers to the prince." And he looked at him keenly. "I think not, King," said Hokosa. "None but a fool would make use of women to carry secret words or tidings. Their tongues are too long, and their memories too bad, or too uncertain." "Yet I have heard, Hokosa, that you have made use of women in many a strange work. Say now, what were you doing upon a night a while ago with that fair witch wife of yours yonder in the burying place of kings, where it is not lawful that you should set your foot? Nay, deny it not. You were seen to enter the valley after midnight, and to return thence at the dawn. And it was seen also that as she came homewards, your wife walked as one who is drunken, and she, whom it is not easy to frighten, wore a face of fear. Man, I do not trust you, and were I wise, I should hunt you hence, or keep you so close that you could scarcely move without my knowledge." "Why should I trust you?" Nodwengo went on vehemently. "Can a wizard cease from wizardry, or a plotter from his plots? No, not until the waters run upward and the sun shines at night, not until repentance touches you and your heart is changed, which I should hold as much a marvel. You were my father's friend, and he made you great, yet you could plan with my brother to poison him your king. Nay, be silent, I know it, though I have said nothing of it, because one that is dear to me has interceded for you. You were the priest of the false god, and with that god are fallen from your place. Yet you have not renounced him. You sit still in your kraal and pretend to be asleep, but your slumber is that of the serpent, which watches his time to strike. How do I know that you will not poison me, as you would have poisoned my father, or stir up rebellion against me, or bring my brother's impis on my head?" "If the king thinks any of these things of his servant," answered Hokosa in a humble voice, but with dignity, "his path is plain. Let him put me to death and sleep in peace. Who am I that I should fill the ears of the king with my defence against these charges, or dare to wrangle with him?" "Long ago I should have put you to death, Hokosa," answered Nodwenga sternly, "had it not been that one has pleaded for you, declaring that in you there is good which will overcome the evil, and that you who are now an axe to cut down my throne, in time to come shall be a roof tree for its support. Also, the law that I obey does not allow me to take the blood of men save upon full proof, and against you as yet I have no proof. Still, Hokosa, be warned in time, and let your heart be turned before the grave claims your body and the wicked one your soul." "I thank you, King, for your gentle words and your tender care for my well-being, both on earth and after I shall leave it. But I tell you, King, that I had rather die as your father would have killed me in the old days, or your brother would kill me now, did either of them hate or fear me, than live on in safety, owing my life to a new law and a new mercy that do not befit the great ones of the world. King, I am your servant." And giving him the royal salute, Hokosa rose and left his presence. "At the least, there goes a man," said Nodwengo as he watched him depart. "Of whom do you speak, King?" asked Owen, who at that moment entered the royal house. "Of him whom you must have touched in the doorway, Messenger, Hokosa the wizard," answered the king, and he told him of what had passed between them. "I said," he added, "that he was a man, and so he is. Yet I hold that I have done wrong to listen to your pleading and to spare him, for I am certain that he will bring bloodshed upon me and trouble upon the faith. Think now, Messenger, how full must be that man's heart of secret rage and hate, he who was so great and is now so little. Will he not certainly strive to grow great again? Will he not strive to be avenged upon those who humbled him and the religion they have chosen?" "It may be," answered Owen, "but if so, he will not conquer. I tell you, King, that like water hidden in a rock there is good in this man's heart, and that I shall yet find a rod wherewith to cause it to gush out and refresh the desert." "It is more likely that he will find a spear wherewith to cause your blood to gush out and refresh the jackals," answered the king grimly. "But be it as you will. And now, what of your business?" "This, King. John, my servant, has returned from the coast countries, and he brings me a letter saying that before long 3 white teachers will follow him to take up the work which I have begun. I pray that when they come, for my sake and for the sake of the truth that I have taught you, you will treat them kindly and protect them, remembering that at first they can know little of your language or your customs." "I will indeed," said the king with much concern. "But tell me, Messenger, why do you speak of yourself as one who will soon be but a memory? Do you propose to leave us?" "No, King, but I believe that ere long I shall be recalled. I have given my message. My task is well nigh ended, and I must be turning home. Save for your sakes I do not sorrow at this, for to speak truth, I grow very weary." And he smiled sadly. Hokosa went home alarmed and full of bitterness, for he had never guessed that the servant of the messenger, as he called Nodwengo the king, knew so much about him and his plans. His fall was hard to him, but to be thus measured up, weighed, and contemptuously forgiven was almost more than he could bear. It was the white prophet who had done this thing. He had told Nodwengo of his, Hokosa's, share in the plot to murder the late King Umsuka, though how he came to know of that matter was beyond guessing. He had watched him, or caused him to be watched, when he went forth to consult spirits in the places of the dead. He had warned Nodwengo against him. Worst of all, he had dared to treat him with contempt, had pleaded for his life and safety, so that he was spared as men spare a snake from which the charmer has drawn the fangs. When they met in the gate of the king's house yonder, this white thief who had stolen his place and power
had even smiled upon him and greeted him kindly, and doubtless while he smiled, by aid of the magic he possessed, had read him through and gone on to tell the story to the king. Well, of this there should be an end. He would kill the messenger or himself be killed. When Hokosa reached his kraal, he found Noma sitting beneath a fruit tree that grew in it, idly employed in stringing beads. For the work of the household she left to his other wife, Zinti, an old and homely woman, who thought more of the brewing of the beer and the boiling of the porridge than of religions or politics or the will of kings. Of late Noma had haunted the shadow of this tree, for beneath it lay that child which had been born to her. "Does it please the king to grant leave for my journey?" she asked, looking up. "Yes, it pleases him." "I am thankful," she answered, "for I think that if I bide here much longer, with ghosts and memories for company, I shall go mad." And she glanced at a spot near by, where the earth showed signs of recent disturbance. "He gives leave," Hokosa went on, taking no notice of her speech, "but he suspects us. Listen." And he told her of the talk that had passed between himself and the king. "The white man has read you as he reads in his written books," she answered with a little laugh. "Well, I said that he would be too clever for you, did I not? It does not matter to me, for tomorrow I go upon my journey, and you can settle it as you will." "Ay," answered Hokosa, grinding his teeth, "it is true that he has read me, but this I promise you, that all books shall soon be closed to him. Yet how is it to be done without suspicion or discovery? I know many poisons, but all of them must be administered, and let him work never so cunningly, he who gives a poison can be traced." "Then cause some other to give it, and let him bear the blame," suggested Noma languidly. Hokosa made no answer, but walking to the gate of the kraal, which was open, he leaned against it, lost in thought. As he stood thus, he saw a woman advancing toward him, who carried on her head a small basket of fruit, and knew her for one of those whose business it was to wait upon the messenger in his huts, or rather in his house, for by now he had built himself a small house, and near it a chapel. This woman saw Hokosa also, and looked at him sideways, as though she would like to stop and speak to him, but feared to do so. "Good morrow to you, friend," he said. "How goes it with your husband and your house?" Now Hokosa knew well that this woman's husband had taken a dislike to her and driven her from his home, filling her place with one younger and more attractive. At the question the woman's lips began to tremble and her eyes swam with tears. "Ah, great doctor," she said, "why do you ask me of my husband? Have you not heard that he has driven me away and that another takes my place?" "Do I hear all the gossip of this town?" asked Hokosa with a smile. "But come in and tell me the story. Perchance I may be able to help you, for I have charms to compel the fancy of such faithless ones." The woman looked round, and seeing that there was no one in sight, she slipped swiftly through the gate of the kraal, which he closed behind her. "Noma," said Hokosa, "here is one who tells me that her husband has deserted her, and who comes to seek my counsel. Bring her milk to drink." "There are some wives who would not find that so great an evil," replied Noma mockingly, as she rose to do his bidding. Hokosa winced at the sarcasm, and turning to his visitor said: "Now tell me your tale, but say first, why are you so frightened?" "I am frightened, master," she answered, "lest any should have seen me enter here. For I have become a Christian, and the Christians are forbidden to consult the witch doctors, as we were wont to do. For my case it is—" "No need to set it out," broke in Hokosa, waving his hand. "I see it written on your face. Your husband has put you away and loves another woman, your own half sister, whom you brought up from a child." "Ah, master, you have heard aright." "I have not heard. I look upon you and I see. Fool, am I not a wizard? Tell me." And taking dust into his hand, he blew the grains this way and that, regarding them curiously. "Yes, it is so. Last night you crept to your husband's hut. Do you remember? A dog growled at you as you passed the gate, and there in front of the hut he sat with his new wife. She saw you coming, but pretending not to see, she threw her arms about his neck, kissing and fondling him before your eyes, till you could bear it no longer, and revealed yourself, upbraiding them.
Then your rival taunted you and stirred up the man with bitter words, till at length he took a stick and beat you from the door. And there is a mark of it upon your shoulder." "It is true, it is too true," she groaned. "Yes, it is true. And now what do you wish from me?" "Master, I wish a medicine to make my husband hate my rival and to draw his heart back to me." "That must be a strong medicine," said Hokosa, "which will turn a man from one who is young and beautiful to one who is past her youth and ugly." "I am as I am," answered the poor woman with a touch of natural dignity, "but at least I have loved him and worked for him for 15 long years." "And that is why he would now be rid of you, for who cumbers his kraal with old cattle?" "And yet at times they are the best, master. Wrinkles and smooth skin seem strange upon one pillow," she added, glancing at Noma, who came from the hut carrying a bowl of milk in her hand. "If you seek counsel," said Hokosa quickly, "why do you not go to the white man, that messenger in whom you believe, and ask him for a potion to turn your husband's heart?" "Master, I have been to him, and he is very good to me, for when I was driven out he gave me work to do and food. But he told me that he had no medicine for such cases, and that the great man in the sky alone could soften the breast of my husband and cause my sister to cease from her wickedness. Last night I went to see whether he would do it, and you know what befell me there. That befell you which befalls all fools who put their trust in words alone. What will you pay me, woman, if I give you the medicine which you seek?" "Alas, master, I am poor. I have nothing to offer you, for when I would not stay in my husband's kraal to be a servant to his new wife, he took the cow and the 5 goats that belonged to me, as I, being childless, according to our ancient law, he had the right to do." "You are bold to come to ask a doctor to minister to you, bearing no fee in your hand," said Hokosa. "Yet because I have pity on you, I will be content with very little. Give me that basket of fruit, for my wife has been sick and loves its taste." "I cannot do that, master," answered the woman, "for it is sent by my hand as a present to the messenger, and he knows this and will eat of it after he has made prayer today. Did I not give it to him, it would be discovered that I had left it here with you." "Then be gone without your medicine," said Hokosa, "for I need such fruit." The woman rose and said, looking at him wistfully, "Master, if you will be satisfied with other fruits of this same sort, I know where I can get them for you." "When will you get them?" "Now, within an hour. Until I return, I will leave these in pledge with you, but these and no other I must give to the messenger, for he has already seen them and might discover the difference. Also, I have promised so to do." "As you will," said Hokosa. "If you are with the fruit within an hour, the medicine will be ready for you, a medicine that shall not fail." End of chapter 13. Of the Wizard by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The eating of the fruit. The woman slipped away secretly. When she had gone, Hokosa bade his wife bring the basket of fruit into the hut. "It is best that the butcher should kill the ox himself," she answered meaningly. He carried in the basket and set it on the floor. "Why do you speak thus, Noma?" he asked. "Because I will have no hand in the matter, Hokosa. I have been the tool of a wizard, and won little joy therefrom. The tool of a murderer I will not be." "If I kill, it is for the sake of both of us," he said passionately. "It may be so, Hokosa, or for the sake of the people, or for the sake of heaven above. I do not know and do not care. But I say, do your own killing, for I am sure that even less luck will hang to it than hangs to your witchcraft." "Of all women you are the most perverse," he said, stamping his foot upon the ground. "Thus you may say again before everything is done, husband. But if it be so, why do you love me and tie me to you with your wizardry? Cut the knot and let me go my way while you go yours." "Woman, I cannot. But still I bid you beware, for strive as you will, my path must be your path. Moreover, till I free you, You cannot lift voice or hand against me."
Then, while she watched him curiously, Hokosa fetched his medicines and took from them some powder fine as dust, and 2 tiny crow quills. Placing a fruit before him, he inserted one of these quills into its substance, and filling the second with the powder, he shook its contents into it and withdrew the tube. This process he repeated 4 times on each of the fruits, replacing them one by one in the basket. So deftly did he work upon them that however closely they were scanned, none could guess that they had been tampered with.
"Will it kill at once?"
asked Noma.
"No, indeed. But he who eats these fruits will be seized on the 3rd day with dysentery and fever, and these will cling to him till within 7 weeks, or if he is very strong, 3 months, he dies. This is the best of poisons, for it works through nature and can be traced by none."
"Except perchance by that spirit whom the white man worships, and who also works through nature, as you learned, Hokosa, when he rolled the lightning back upon your head, shattering your god and beating down your company."
Then of a sudden terror seized the wizard, and springing to his feet he cursed his wife till she trembled before him.
"Vile woman and double-faced," he said, "why do you push me forward with one hand and with the other drag me back? Why do you whisper evil counsel into one ear, and into the other prophesy of misfortunes to come? Had it not been for you, I should have let this business lie. I should have taken my fate and been content. But day by day you have taunted me with my fall, and grieved over the greatness that you have lost, till at length you have driven me to this. Why cannot you be all good or all wicked, or at the least, through righteousness and sin, faithful to my interest and your own?"
"Because I hate you, Hokosa, and yet can strike you only through my tongue and your mad love for me. I am fast in your power, but thus at least I can make you feel something of my own pain. Hark! I hear that woman at the gate. Will you give her back the basket, or will you not? Whatever you may choose to do, do not say in after days that I urged you to do the deed."
"Truly you are great-hearted," he answered with cold contempt, "one for whom I did well to enter into treachery and sin. So be it. Having gone so far upon it, come what may, I will not turn back from this journey. Let in that fool."
Presently the woman stood before them, bearing with her another basket of fruit.
"These are what you seek, master," she said, "though I was forced to win them by theft. Now give me my own and the medicine, and let me go."
He gave her the basket, and with it, wrapped in a piece of kidskin, some of the same powder with which he had doctored the fruits.
"What shall I do with this?" she asked.
"You must find means to sprinkle it upon your sister's food, and thereafter your husband shall come to hate even the sight of her."
"But will he come to love me again?"
Hokosa shrugged his shoulders.
"I know not," he answered. "That is for you to see to. Yet this is sure, that if a tree grows up before the house of a man, shutting it off from the sunlight, when that tree is cut down, the sun shines upon his house again."
"It is nothing to the sun on what he shines," said the woman.
"If the saying does not please you, then forget it. I promise you this and no more, that very soon the man shall cease to turn to your rival."
"The medicine will not harm her?" asked the woman doubtfully. "She has worked me bitter wrong indeed, yet she is my sister, whom I nursed when she was little, and I do not wish to do her hurt. If only he will welcome me back and treat me kindly, I am willing even that she should dwell on beneath my husband's roof, bearing his children, for will they not be of my own blood?"
"Woman," answered Hokosa impatiently, "you weary me with your talk. Did I say that the charm would hurt her? I said that it would cause your husband to hate the sight of her. Now begone, taking or leaving it, and let me rest. If your mind is troubled, throw aside that medicine and go soothe it with such sights as you saw last night."
On hearing this, the woman sprang up, hid away the poison in her hair, and taking her basket of fruit, passed from the kraal as secretly as she had entered it.
"Why did you give her death medicine?"
asked Noma of Hokosa as he stood staring after her. "Have you a hate to satisfy against the husband or the girl who is her rival?"
"None," he answered, "for they have never crossed my path. Oh, foolish woman, can you not read my plan? "Not altogether, husband." "Listen then. This woman will give to her sister a medicine of which in the end she must die. She may be discovered or she may not, but it is certain that she will be suspected, seeing that the bitterness of the quarrel between them is known. Also she will give to the messenger certain fruits, after eating of which he will be taken sick and in due time die of just such a disease as that which carries off the woman's rival. Now if any think that he is poisoned, which I trust none will, whom will they suppose to have poisoned him, though indeed they can never prove the crime?" "The plan is clever," said Noma with admiration, "but in it I see a flaw. The woman will say that she had the drug from you, or at the least will babble of her visit to you." "Not so," answered Hokosa, "for on this matter the greatest talker in the world would keep silence. Firstly, she, being a Christian, dare not own that she has visited a witch doctor. Secondly, the fruit she brought in payment was stolen, therefore she will say nothing of it. Thirdly, to admit that she had medicine from me would be to admit her guilt, and that she will scarcely do even under torture, which by the new law it is not lawful to apply. Moreover, none saw her come here, and I should deny her visit." "The plan is very clever," said Noma again. "It is very clever," he repeated complacently. "Never have I made a better one. Now throw those fruits to the she goats that are in the kraal, and burn the basket, while I go and talk to some in the Great Place, telling them that I have returned from counting my cattle on the mountain, whither I went after I had bowed the knee in the house of the king." 2 hours later, Hokosa, having made a wide detour and talked to sundry of his acquaintances about the condition of his cattle, might have been seen walking slowly along the north side of the Great Place towards his own kraal. His path lay past the chapel and the little house that Owen had built to dwell in. This house was furnished with a broad verandah, and upon it sat the messenger himself eating his evening meal. Hokosa saw him, and a great desire entered his heart to learn whether or no he had partaken of the poisoned fruit. Also it occurred to him that it would be wise if, before the end came, he could contrive to divert all possible suspicion from himself by giving the impression that he was now upon friendly terms with the great white teacher, and not disinclined even to become a convert to his doctrine. For a moment he hesitated, seeking an excuse. One soon suggested itself to his ready mind. That very morning the king had told him, not obscurely, that Owen had pleaded for his safety and saved him from being put upon his trial on charges of witchcraft and murder. He would go to him, now at once, playing the part of a grateful penitent, and the white man's magic must be keen indeed if it availed to pierce the armour of his practised craft. So Hokosa went up and squatted himself down native fashion among a little group of converts who were waiting to see their teacher upon one business or another. He was not more than 10 paces from the verandah, and sitting thus he saw a sight that interested him strangely. Having eaten a little dish of roasted meat, Owen put out his hand and took a fruit from a basket that the wizard knew well. At this moment he looked up and recognized Hokosa. "Do you desire speech with me, Hokosa?" he asked in his gentle voice. "If so, be pleased to come hither." "Nay, messenger," answered Hokosa, "I desire speech with you indeed, but it is ill to stand between a hungry man and his food." "I care little for my food," answered Owen. "At the least it can wait," and he put down the fruit. Then suddenly a feeling to which the wizard had been for many years a stranger took possession of him, a feeling of compunction. That man was about to partake of what would cause his death, of what he, Hokosa, had prepared in order that it should cause his death. He was good, he was kindly, none could allege a wrong deed against him, and, foolishness though it might be, so was the doctrine that he taught. Why should he kill him? It was true that never till that moment had he hesitated, by fair means or foul, to remove an enemy or rival from his path. He had been brought up in this teaching. It was part of the education of wizards to be merciless, for they reigned by terror and evil craft. Their magic lay chiefly in clairvoyance and powers of observation developed to a pitch that was almost superhuman, and the best of their weapons was poison in infinite variety, whereof the guild alone understood the properties and preparation.
Therefore there was nothing strange, nothing unusual in this deed of devilish and cunning murder, that the sight of its doing should stir him thus. And yet it did stir him. He was minded to stop the plot, to let things take their course. Some sense of the futility of all such strivings came home to him, and as in a glass, for Hokosa was a man of imagination, he foresaw their end. A little success, a little failure, it scarcely mattered which, and then that end. Within 20 years, or 10, or mayhap even 1, what would this present victory or defeat mean to him? Nothing, so far as he was concerned. That is, nothing so far as his life of today was concerned. Yet, if he had another life, it might mean everything. There was another life, he knew it, who had dragged back from its borders the spirits of the dead, though what might be the state and occupations of those dead he did not know. Yet he believed, why he could not tell, that they were affected vitally by their acts and behaviour here, and his intelligence warned him that good must always flow from good, and evil from evil. To kill this man was evil, and of it only evil could come. What did he care whether Hafela ruled the nation or Nodwengo, and whether it worshipped the god of the Christians or the god of fire, who, by the way, had proved himself so singularly inefficient in the hour of trial? Now that he thought of it, he much preferred Nodwengo to Hafela, for one was a just man and the other a tyrant, and he himself was more comfortable as a wealthy private person than he had been as a head medicine man and a chief of wizards. He would let things stand. He would prevent the messenger from eating of that fruit. A word would do it. He had but to suggest that it was unripe or not wholesome at this season of the year, and it would be cast aside. All these reflections, or their substance, passed through Hokosa's mind in a few instants of time, and already he was rising to go to the verandah and translate their moral into acts, when another thought occurred to him. How should he face Noma with this tale? He could give up his own ambitions, but could he bear her mockery, as day by day she taunted him with his faint-heartedness, and reproached him with his failure to regain greatness and to make her great? He forgot that he might conceal the truth from her, or rather, he did not contemplate such concealment, of which their relations were too peculiar and too intimate to permit. She hated him, and he worshipped her with a half-inhuman passion, a passion so unnatural indeed that it suggested the horrid and insatiable longings of the damned. And yet their souls were naked to each other. It was their fate that they could hide nothing each from each. They were cursed with the awful necessity of candour. It would be impossible that he should keep from Noma anything that he did or did not do. It would be still more impossible that she should conceal from him even such imaginings and things as it is common for women to hold secret. Her very bitterness, which it had been policy for her to cloak or soften, would gush from her lips at the sight of him. Nor in the depth of his rage and torment could he, on the other hand, control the ill-timed utterance of his continual and overmastering passion. It came to this, then. He must go forward, and against his better judgment, because he was afraid to go back, for the whip of a woman's tongue drove him on remorselessly. It was better that the messenger should die, and the land run red with blood, than that he should be forced to endure this scourge. So with a sigh Hokosa sank back to the ground and watched, while Owen ate 3 of the poisoned fruits. After a pause he took a 4th and bit into it, but not seeming to find it to his taste, he threw it to a child who was waiting by the verandah for any scraps which might be left over from his meal. The child caught it and devoured it eagerly. Then, smiling at the little boy's delight, the messenger called to Hokosa to come up and speak with him. End of chapter 14.